All right, good morning. Well, I thought since it's the last service of 2014, Sinclair, get ready, okay? I'm just letting you know. So, two antennas met on the roof, fell in love, and got married. The ceremony wasn't much, but the reception was excellent. Huh? Okay. A jumper cable walks into a bar, and the bartender says, "I'll serve you, but don't start anything." All right. Two peanuts walk into a bar. One was assaulted. All right. A dyslexic man walks into a bra. All right. A man walks into a bar with a slab of asphalt under his arm, and he says, "A beer, please, and one for the road." Come on, these are cute. Two cannibals are eating a clown. One says to the other, "Does this taste funny to you?" No. A man says to the doctor, "Doctor, I can't stop singing the green, green grass of home." And the doctor says, "That sounds like Tom Jones syndrome." And the man says, "Is that common?" And the doctor says, "Well, it's not unusual." All right, I'm just going to ask for forgiveness in advance on this one, okay? Okay. So two cows are standing next to each other in a field, and Daisy says to Dolly, "I was artificially inseminated this morning." "I don't believe you," says Dolly. "It's true, no bull," says Daisy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. An invisible man marries an invisible woman. Their kids were nothing to look at either. Huh? Okay. Definition: déjà vu, the feeling that you've heard this bull before. Okay. I went to buy some camouflage trousers the other day, but I couldn't find any. Look, I don't write these things. Oh, no, I'm just going to skip that. Two fish swim into a concrete wall. One turns to the other and says, "Damn." All right, almost done. We're almost done. All right. Two men are sitting in a kayak, and they're getting chilly, so they lit a fire in the craft. So not surprisingly, it sank, proving once again that you can't have your kayak and heat it too. All right. Again, I apologize, okay? But you know, when I read these at home, I was laughing out loud. I thought they were so funny. So it just goes to show it's all in one's own perception, isn't it? A group of chess enthusiasts checked into a hotel and were standing in the lobby discussing their recent tournament victories. And after about an hour, the manager came over to them out of the office and asked them to disperse. "But why?" they asked as they moved off. He said, "Because I can't stand chestnuts boasting in an open foyer." I know, really. All right, we're almost there. We're almost there. A woman has twins, and she gives them up for adoption. And one of them goes to a family in Egypt, and his name is Amal. The other goes to a family in Spain, and they name him Juan. Years later, Juan sends a picture of himself to his birth mother. Upon receiving the picture, she tells her husband that she wishes she also had a picture of Amal. Her husband responds, "They're twins. If you've seen Juan, you've seen Amal." Okay. I think we'll stop there. Okay. So, in the Old Testament, in Genesis, in the book of Genesis, there's the story of Jacob wrestling with the angel, or sometimes it's referred to as Jacob wrestling with God. So in metaphysics, we say that an angel is a divine idea, right? And so Jacob wrestles with the angel, with the divine idea, perhaps in a way that many of us have wrestled with the divine idea. It's something that's pretty much done alone. It's often done in the middle of the night. I don't know about you, but I have certainly wrestled with many divine ideas in the middle of the night. And it leaves us forever changed, you know, whether it would be limping or blessed or both, as with the case of Jacob. Also, what happens is that as a result of this, part of that change is that Jacob has a new name. You know, he's not the same person that started. So this is why the angel gives him a new name, because names metaphysically tend to do with our nature. So his nature has been changed. Something fundamental to who he is going forward in his life from now on has been changed. So I think we wrestle when what we get is different than what we want. Isn't that so? I mean, because I have a really good idea. I have a very, very clear picture of what I want. And yet sometimes God and the universe and life around me brings me things that are different than that. You know, and so I kind of, and I wrestle with it and wrestle with it and wrestle with it. There was an 11th century French rabbi. His name was Shlomo Yitzhaki. I just wanted to say his name because I thought it was so much fun to say. Shlomo Yitzhaki. And, but they called him Rashi. And he said that the Hebrew word for wrestle is attach or tie. So I thought that was really interesting. So I've been thinking about that a lot, attach or tie. And I don't know if you had these when you were a kid, but we used to have these Chinese finger puzzles. Did you have these? And the idea was that the more you struggled and wrestled with them, the more attached you became. And so I think in the story, the more that Jacob wrestles with the angel or with God, the more attached he becomes. So I think we all wrestle with God, and I think in a mysterious way, we are actually drawn closer. So we teach that the way God gives to us is God gives to us in the realm of ideas. Right? God gives us an idea. And if you're like me, you probably wrestle with that a lot for whatever reason, you know? I ran into somebody a while back, earlier in December, and they had come to church a while back. And I said, hi, nice to see you, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. And they felt the need to tell me that they had not come back to church. Which really was not what I was inquiring for at all. But they said that this hadn't worked for them. Now, I thought that was really interesting, that this hadn't worked for them. And so we were in a real public place, so it was not really the place to kind of say, okay, well, tell me more about that. Tell me why you think it didn't work. What did you do? What did you not do? See, because we teach that we have Ernest Holmes and the other founders of New Thought taught that we have the power to influence our experience in life. Now, when Ernest Holmes and Emma Curtis Hopkins and Mrs. Eddy got that understanding, it was really largely at the mental level, that they were masters of mental science, using the mind to influence conditions and create healing. Now, consciousness has continued to evolve, in some ways good, maybe in some ways not so good, because back then there was an enormous amount of physical healing, you know, that took place because of prayer, because of people being disciplined with their mental science. Now, I think we don't see as much of that today, and so this is what got me thinking about the guy who said that he came to church, but it didn't work for him, and so he left. I think it works, but you have to really, really practice for it to work. you can't be like I mean, you can be, and it's okay if you are, but I'm saying if you want it to work, you can't be like a drive-by science of minder. You know, where you just kind of drive by and say, oh yeah, I love that. It's all positive and happy and loving and muffins and da-da-da-da-da, you know, that's sort of like the drive-by, you know, that really this, as much as anything else in life, and we know this principle is everywhere, that you get out of it what you put into it. That our teaching really encourages people that we must be centered in our relationship with God. And that in that relationship with God, we build faith so that, like Jacob, when we hear the voice of God, when God gives us an idea and we start to wrestle with it, we're changed by it. So that when Jacob, who now becomes Israel, leaves, when he walks away, when the sun comes up, he is a different person. He's going to lead a different life than he led before. So here's the thing that I realize, is that people are very interested in creating their own reality, right? You know, because Science of Mind says we create. But you know, for us to be really effective creating, what goes on the inside has to be more real than what goes on the outside. You know, that we have to believe in an inner spiritual reality more than we believe in an external physical reality. We have to know that there is more truth in that I am a spiritual being than there is in I am a human being. And so I know the more attached I am, the more identified I am with I am a human being, then it's going to be harder for a spiritual truth to come forward into my life. So this is the thing that I've learned, is that Science of Mind largely involves working with spiritual laws. And we work with those spiritual laws consistently and intelligently. And if you do that, if you work with the spiritual laws consistently and intelligently, you cannot help but change and evolve and grow your consciousness. If you put new in consistently, eventually you're going to start to get new out. I mean, doesn't that just make sense? It has to, right? If you start to speak differently and think differently and talk to yourself differently and feed your mind higher truths, you're going to start to have a different experience out here. But this I see and have seen for years, this is the problem. That people want things out here in their life to be different. They just don't want to have to do anything to get there. Isn't that funny? I mean, I think that's really, really funny. That's like saying to a fireplace, give me heat, and then I'll give you wood. Right? It just doesn't work that way. And so we say, so I'll talk about healing. We say, I want to have healing. I want to have some physical healing, some demonstrable physical healing in my life, in my body, okay? And it could be money and it could be relationships, but today I'll talk about that physical healing. Because, you know, early on in our teaching, there was lots and lots and lots of physical healing. People had physical healings all the time. There's a great story in a book by Fenwick Holmes, Ernest's brother, and he talks about how Peggy Lee was appearing at the Astoria, the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. And she was going to give concerts there for a few nights. And she calls Ernest on the day of her show, and she has full-blown laryngitis. She has almost no voice at all. And she's sold out for the next number of nights at the Waldorf Astoria. And Ernest says to her, give me the problem. I'm going to treat for you. I'm going to pray for you. Your job is to be silent and have faith and believe. That's all you need to do. Be silent, have faith, and believe. And he says, and you're going to be able to sing tonight. Now, isn't that extraordinary faith on his part? I mean, but it was also extraordinary faith on her part. That she was so that night she walks out on stage and she has not been speaking all day long. And she had her full voice and did her show every night that she was there. It takes a really disciplined soul to be able to create, I think. That people don't heal largely, and I mean this with great love and respect. People don't heal because I think we're largely undisciplined. You know, that we're pretty, we're undisciplined people. I'm sorry, I include myself in this. If I were to write a book, it would be How to Master Procrastination. Yeah, that would be my book. That would be my book, because I could just write about that forever, because that would mean I wasn't writing about the other stuff that I say I want to write about, right? So I could write about mastering procrastination. So I understand that, we're just not as disciplined as we could be, because to be really creative beings, I think it requires discipline on our part. And we're not necessarily disciplined creatures, and people will say, well, it can't be that simple. That's, things are simple. Well, I think that's just nonsense. There's this guy who's he's been a big CEO and a speaker. His name is Jeff Olson, and so I've read some of his stuff, and his thing is this: that something is easy to do. That great success and mastery in life and being creative doesn't take extraordinary feats. It takes things that are very simple and actually doing them consistently. But the problem with that is things that are easy to do are also easy to not do. Right? Aren't they? And you think, if I say, well, I should go for a walk. Now, that's a pretty easy thing. It involves slipping on my tennis shoes, which is really easy now because I buy the ones that don't have laces. They have Velcro, so it's really easy, so do that, and I just move my legs in this kind of a motion, and there I am, I'm doing it. I know that will be good for me, but I lack discipline, right? So it's easy to do, but it's easy to not do. And so the way I look at it is, well, if I walk for every day for an hour, at the end of the week, I will have exercised for 7 hours just walking in my Velcro shoes. Just walking, just 7 hours. Wow, that's a lot. And so people do this with meditating and say, well, I should meditate for a long time. I should meditate for an hour if I'm really spiritual. Nah, let that go. Meditate for 10 minutes. 10 minutes, just 3 times as long as we did this morning. You set yourself a little timer, and you're just 10 minutes, because at the end of the week, you will have meditated for 70 minutes. At the end of the month, 300 minutes. Wow, that's a lot. That's actually a lot. So this has been such a light bulb going off in my head, that things are easy to do, but they're also easy to not do. And it's like, which one is going to win out? Which one is going to win out? And I think this is absolutely related to why people don't have more healing in their life, because God gives us an idea, and like Jacob, we wrestle with the idea, but if we're not changed, if we don't do something different on the other side of that wrestling, then nothing has been accomplished. So back east, there is still this charismatic Catholic priest. And so he would say that one year, many years ago on Mother's Day, he got the gift of healing. And so he was from that same movement that Ron Roth, who was a friend of our church years ago. Some of you were here when Ron Roth was here, about 20 years ago. He could just look at you and see what was wrong physically within you, and he would lay hands on people, and oftentimes people were healed. So that's pretty great and freaky, isn't it? It's like, wow, that's amazing. That's really, really amazing. But in the book written by this man back east, Father Ralph, he said, through the grace of God, sometimes I can assist people and they can be healed. So he says, but if after that experience of healing, they do not change spiritually, mentally, and physically, very likely the condition will come back. All right? So he's saying, through the grace of God, you get a little slice of grace. You get a little reprieve here. And in that reprieve, you've got to say, all right, where does my life need to change? I've got to change my thinking. I've got to change how I'm being, how I'm acting in the world, and I've got to change my spiritual foundation, my spiritual practice. I got to get really, really serious about things. So when people say, well, I don't want to be told what to do. You know, it's like, well, you know, if you get to the point where you have an illness, largely the time of free will and choice has passed. You know, that train has left the station. Or as we like to say, Elvis has left the building. You know, you had free will and choice way back when you were wrestling with the angel, when you were hearing again and again, you should eat better. You should get some exercise. You should get some rest. You should stop drinking 3 liters of Pepsi a day. You should do this. You should do that. You know, we've heard that again and again and again. That was the window when we had extraordinary choice and free will. But now, if something physical has cropped up, you know, this is really where the rubber meets the road. Holy cow, I got to really, really, really pay attention and do something different, because now this is going to take a very disciplined soul to create something else. You know, people don't heal because I think they're undisciplined in their mind and their spirit and their body, however we want to say that. So if you are willing to pray that, and I know people are, that help me prayer, right? What is it? Annie Lamott, the writer, she says there are 3 prayers, and it's help, thanks, and wow. Those are the 3 prayers, right? So if you're on the help prayer, right? If you're on the help prayer, then you get hit with what it will take, and you get hit with what it's going to take. You have to be willing to do what it takes without compromise. So one of the ways to look at this is that if you're dealing with a physical challenge, there are ways that we'll go Chinese for a minute, the chi, the life force within you, or in yoga we would say the prana, that the prana is leaving you, right? And so being able to heal necessitates that we will take full responsibility for accepting the intuition that God gives us. That God says, now it's time for you to do this. Now it's time for you to include this. Now I think that intuition, I think everybody has it, but I think we get better with it the more we practice listening to it. You know, that we've got to really, really say, okay, this is important enough. This is now important enough that I'm willing to do something different. So again, if you have a challenging physical condition in your life, largely you're past the choice point. You had choice before the intuition said, you know, you should really start exercising, or you've got to stop drinking, or you've got to stop with the sugar, or eat more vegetables, or get in shape. What happens, I see, is that people get hit, and then they think, they get hit with something, and then they think, I can negotiate now. It's like, oh, no, the negotiation was already closed. That already came and went. So, and see, this is the thing. This is what I couldn't help but thinking about with that guy who I was talking with, is that people really don't want to work that hard. You know, because I want things to be different, but I don't want to change my life. You know, I want the power to create if it doesn't cost me anything. You know, there was a great violinist, Paderewski. Is that his name, Paderewski? And there's the story about the woman who came up to him and said, oh my God, I would give my life to be able to play like you. And he said, I did. You know, but people don't want to change a thing. People say, you know, oh, the power to create doesn't work for me. Well, yes, it's certainly not going to work if you are undisciplined. You know, it requires, I think, all that we have to get beyond whatever the physical condition is. So, you know, Diana and I, we take these groups of people to Brazil, and people are very interested in physical healing. And we go see this great medium, João Teixeira, and they think he's going to do it all for them, right? And so this is really, really interesting, because he says he and the entities of light and love and healing that he works with, there are these benevolent entities that are available to help. He says, but he can only do 50%. that if you come back and nothing has changed in you, if you haven't taken this seriously and you haven't changed your spiritual consciousness and started to meditate and pray and read sacred books and all this kind of stuff to cultivate an inner spiritual life, and you haven't changed your thinking and you haven't changed what you're doing physically, so that might mean exercising or eating more vegetables or whatever that means for you, or not drinking or no sugar or whatever that is. If you haven't done that, you're probably not going to get the result you really, really want. See, and I understand we live in a society where we love the quick fix, don't we? Really. You watch a little sitcom on TV and there's a situation and it blows up and it's all tied up within 30 minutes. And that includes commercials. Right? It's all tied up very nice and tidy very, very quickly. But for the most part, that's not how things are experienced out here in the world. So it begins with, I think, being willing to listen to the divine idea. The way God gives to us is God gives to us in the realm of ideas. So you get some intuition. You say, all right, so this is what's required to bring greater health forward into my body. And if it's really important, what I know is we will change our life to accommodate that. Now, this is also true with relationships. This is true with money, because the principles are the principles. If they're so in one area, they're so in every area. So am I willing to take that power? See, that's what I've got to decide, and let it change the whole of my life as it needs to, if I'm willing. Because people will say, I want the power to create that, and fill in the blank. I want the power to create loving relationships, and I want the power to create having an abundance of money, and I want the power to create having a really healthy body. But I've spoken with people where they've said, but this just requires too much change for me. It just takes too much. Now, I don't know that everybody always gets healed of everything. I think in the big cosmic picture, sometimes it's just time to go home. But if it's a possibility, why not take the possibility? If it's an option to stay and work with the principles in a greater way and be healed and have a new lease on life, why not? Why not? In Greek mythology, there's this thing about the three fates. And they say that one fate spins your thread, and one fate pulls your thread, and one fate cuts your thread. But Ernest Holmes says in the textbook that our fate, our karma, is not kismet. Our fate is not sealed in cement. That we have creative input into how things evolve. So it's never that life is just the way life is, because we're involved in that. So the power to create is certainly also a power of discernment. That we have to know that, it seems to me to be the easiest thing to rain on other people's parade. That if you tell people, look, I'm really working on healing my body, they are going to tell you all the reasons why it doesn't work, why it's not possible. If you tell somebody that you are going to work on really healing your finances and creating something great for yourself, they're going to tell you all the people they know who failed doing that, right? So this is that part of the power to create something greater is this ability to have discernment, where we don't cast our pearls before swine. Not that other people are swine, but that I think the point of that is that the swine couldn't appreciate. They couldn't see the great value in the pearl. And so if we don't get the signals straight around all of these things, around health and relationship and money, we're going to be very, very conflicted with it, and it's going to seem like it doesn't work. So I think there's a difference between creating with some authority and manipulating. Creating with authority, this is the dominion God has given us. It says in the Old Testament that God gave Adam and Eve dominion over everything that was in the garden. So for us, that starts out of going to our interior and following our guidance.
And I know people are afraid if I really follow this, I'm going to be broke, I'm going to be alone, I'm going to suffer. I mean, God knows I don't want to be a mystic because I've read the lives of the mystics, and those were broke, lonely, suffering people, right? But you know what we miss is that they chose that life. Those people chose that life at that time. That was the only way, for them to go at that particular time in the evolution of consciousness. So I think it's okay to ask ourselves, why do I really want whatever it is I want? Because I don't think that God has any real interest in limiting us. I don't think that exists in divine consciousness. But Thomas Troward, who was one of the early New Thought people, said that God cares nothing for your individual desires, but for the advancement of the race. So I think that's really interesting. So really, what we could ask ourselves is, why would I want this? How would this be good for the world? Why do I want to express this? How would this be good for the world? Why do I want to be better at this? How would this be beneficial in some way? A woman was talking to me about her need for a job. She said, I've got to have a job. I've got to get a job. And I said, so tell me, why do you want to work? And so she launched into this wonderful thing about, she says, I just love people, and I love helping people, and I love being of service to people. And I feel so good at the end of the day if I know I've made a difference in people's lives, and I've been of service, and I've been helpful in some way, and this and that. And then at the end she went, and the money would be good too. But her first priority was all about this being of service and her love of people and assisting them. And I said, I'm just going to treat with you. I said, because I know with that mindset, it's going to be very easy for the right and perfect job to be revealed for you. So the real issue, I think, is whether or not we will develop the capacity to say yes when we've wrestled with the angel. That we are given what is ours to do to have healing. Now, will I develop the capacity that I say, yes, I'm willing to do it, and I just do it? Let's pray. So we turn our attention inward now for a moment to recognize that right here where we are, God is. The fullness and allness of God, infinite spirit, infinite intelligence, infinite love. And I claim for each and every one of us that right now, today, we do not need to wait until there is a crisis. That we are already responding to that divine impulse within our heart and mind. That the ever-present presence of pure spirit knows everything we need to know, everything we need to do, and we turn to that now, fully open and willing and receptive. So I claim for each and every one of us healing in whatever area of life we're desirous of healing, whether it's in our body temple or our finances or our relationship or our creative expression. I just know for each and every one of us that great good is available, that the life ahead of us does not need to look like what's behind us. And so with open hearts and open minds, I know we are willing to do whatever we are given. So we include in our prayer our family members and friends and loved ones. We surround them with a mantle of God's peace and God's love. We let our prayer be a blessing in the world. So wherever the appearance looks really fearful to us, wherever we're really tended to believe in separation from God, we claim that right there in the midst of that, the perfect activity of the one life is being revealed. As love, as peace, as all needs met. We bless our church, we bless all churches, synagogues and temples and mosques and ashrams, all paths to God. And I know we're blessed, we're healed, we're raised up by being together. And so with a grateful heart, I give thanks that this is so.